15 years ago, a human boy left an alien world in confusion and heartbreak. Today, he returns to find his childhood neighbor not only alive, but hiding a secret that could shatter everything the galaxy believes about humanity, love, and history itself. Dylan Rod stared out of his starship's cockpit as twin suns scorched the green skies of Verdania. Port Emerald slowly came into view, looking almost exactly as he remembered: gleaming towers, overgrown ruins, and that soft shimmer in the air that always smelled faintly metallic. The docking bay welcomed him with a robotic voice, but he hardly heard it. His heart was thudding too loudly. He hadn't set foot on this planet in over a decade. Back then, he'd been a skinny 17-year-old human among mostly alien neighbors, dragged away by his parents with no warning and no chance to say goodbye. Especially not to her. As the landing gear clicked into place, Dylan ran a hand through his tousled hair and took a deep breath. He wasn't that kid anymore. At 32, he was taller, broader, and more worn by life. His skin tanned by starlight, his beard neatly trimmed, his eyes sharper, but still holding a hint of that same curiosity. The ramp lowered. Heat rose from the ground in visible waves, and Dylan threw his leather jacket over one shoulder as he stepped down. Familiar smells hit him like a wave. The spaceport was a strange mix of modern technology and old alien architecture. Some things had clearly been patched up. Others had been left to crumble. But the memories, they were untouched. He passed through the customs area, barely registering the scanning beams brushing over him. Then, without warning, he froze. A woman leaned against a tall pillar, her emerald green skin glowing under the sunlight. She wore sleek silver clothing that clung perfectly to her form. Her long hair, deep green, almost like forest leaves, spilled down her back. Her eyes, however, were what held him in place: bright green, sharp, amused, and deeply familiar. She smirked and walked toward him with slow, deliberate steps. "Well, well," she said, her voice smooth and teasing. "Look who finally decided to come home." Dylan blinked. He knew that voice. She placed a hand on her hip and tilted her head. "Don't tell me you've forgotten your next-door neighbor already." His jaw dropped. "Tala?" She laughed, a light, musical sound that made his chest tighten. "Not so little anymore, am I?" Tala Tal had been his childhood best friend. They'd played hide-and-seek in the crystal caves, raced through the jungle paths, and whispered about growing up. She'd been awkward and lanky, full of wild energy. Now she looked like a goddess. Last time he saw her, she was just 13. Now she stood before him like a living memory that had matured into something beautiful and dangerous. Dylan smiled despite himself. "You changed." "You haven't," she replied, though her eyes said otherwise. She stepped closer, invading his space just enough to make his breath catch. "Well, maybe a little. 15 years, he said quietly. "That's a long time." She raised an eyebrow. "You promised to write." "I know." He rubbed the back of his neck. Things got complicated. Her expression softened just a bit. "They always do." There was a pause, long enough for the noise of the spaceport to fade around them. "Drinks?" she asked suddenly, brightening. "There's a place called the Stellar Wind. Best cocktails in the city, and we have 15 years to catch up on." Dylan smiled, a real smile this time. "Lead the way." As they walked side by side through the spaceport, he noticed the glances they were getting. A tall human man and a stunning alien woman. Heads turned, whispers followed, but Dylan didn't care. He looked at Tala, who was smiling like she knew a secret. Maybe she did. Maybe it had something to do with why his family left. Maybe it had something to do with the past his father never talked about. Maybe she was hiding something more than just her feelings. But as the sun beat down and the neon lights of Port Emerald flickered to life, one thing was clear. This wasn't going to be a normal reunion, and Dylan Rhodes was about to discover that. Everything he thought he knew about his past, his family, even himself, was only half the truth. The rest, that was still hidden in Tala's eyes, and in the secrets waiting beneath Verdania's glowing surface. The stellar wind was exactly as Dylan remembered, yet somehow better. Cozier, warmer, more alive. Bioluminescent crystals pulsed gently along the curved walls, changing colors with the music. The scent of sweet smoke and alien spices drifted through the air. It felt like walking into a dream he hadn't dared to have in years. Tala chose a booth in the corner, secluded, shadowed, familiar. Instead of sitting across from him, she slid in beside him, thigh pressing casually against his. Her skin was cool to the touch but made his blood feel too warm. Every movement she made was both natural and deliberate, like she was dancing to a rhythm only she could hear. He wasn't sure whether to feel comforted or completely thrown off. Tala signaled the waiter with a lazy flick of her wrist and ordered 2 Ford and Sunrise cocktails. Extra strong, she added with a playful grin. It's been a long day. More like a long 15 years, Dylan replied, his voice low. She didn't look at him right away. Instead, she stirred her drink slowly with a crystal straw. The light from the bar caught in her glass and shimmered against her skin. "Why did you really leave?" she asked, finally meeting his eyes. Her tone was soft, but there was an edge. Beneath it, something old, something hurt. Dylan looked down at his glass, swirling the strange, glowing liquid. "One day, my parents just told me we were leaving. No warning, no goodbyes, no reason. I was angry, confused. I fought them, Tala, but they wouldn't budge. Said it wasn't safe anymore." "Safe?" she echoed, eyes narrowing. "From what?" He hesitated. "I don't know, but now, I think they were hiding something. Something big." Tala leaned closer, her shoulder brushing his. "Like what?" He looked at her, truly looked. She wasn't just beautiful. She was familiar in a way that made his chest ache. The sparkle in her eyes hadn't changed. The way she challenged him, teased him, pulled things out of him he didn't even know he was holding. Still the same. "There was a night," Dylan began, voice slow, careful. "Just before we left, I heard my dad yelling in his study. He never did that. He was arguing with someone, your father, I think." Tala stilled. "What about?" "Something about a containment breach and protocol violations." She turned, her face slightly away, but he caught the flicker of emotion before she masked it. Pain, regret, maybe even fear. "Your father was head of security for the Verdania research facility, wasn't he?" Dylan asked. Tala nodded slowly. "He was, until the explosion." "That explosion," Dylan said, "was the night we left." Now she turned fully toward him. "Dylan, there are things I've never told anyone. Things I couldn't. You can tell me," he said gently. Tala reached for his hand. Her skin felt almost like polished stone, cool and smooth but alive, pulsing faintly in time with her heartbeat. "That night changed everything," she said quietly. "The facility was exploring ancient ruins under the planet, not just alien. Ruins. Pre-contact ruins." Dylan frowned. "That's impossible. Official records say humans and Verdanian only met 300 years ago." Her fingers tightened around his. "What if I told you that's a lie? What if your father and mine uncovered proof that humans and Verdanian had been together for thousands of years?" The world seemed to tilt slightly. Dylan didn't speak. He couldn't. They found carvings, DNA traces, old tech, too advanced for the time it was dated to. It all pointed to one thing: human and Verdani hybrids, living here, thriving, together. Why would anyone cover that up? Because the Verdani Council is built on the idea of evolutionary superiority. If we once shared blood with humans, if we're part human, it destroys everything they've taught our people for generations. They'd lose power, status, control. Dylan stared at her, the pieces slowly clicking into place. "And they forced my family to leave because we were getting too close. They erased everything, she said, her voice heavy with sadness. Buried the research, silenced your father. My father tried to protect what little they could save, but it drove him mad. The guilt, the secrets. He's never been the same. Dylan reached out and brushed a strand of green hair behind her ear. She leaned into his touch without thinking. You knew all this, he whispered, and you waited for me. I didn't know if you'd ever come back, she admitted. But something told me you would. Humans always return for unfinished stories, especially ones with open endings. Before he could respond, the air shifted. A shadow fell across the table. Another Verdanian stood there, tall, broad, skin mottled with age and authority. His eyes locked on Dylan first, then Tala. Well, he said, voice like cracked stone. The prodigal children, together again. Tala's body went stiff. Commander Vex. Dylan tensed, instinctively positioning himself between her and the newcomer. I wasn't aware you were entertaining old friends, Tala, Vex said, gaze cold. She smiled tightly. 15 years is a long time, Commander. People change. Yes, Vex said, stepping closer. Some of them even forget where their loyalties lie. His eyes flicked to Dylan. Jonathan Rodz's boy, just like your father. Always too curious for your own good. Dylan's heart skipped. You knew my father? Oh, we all knew your father, Vex said, voice suddenly sharp. He almost brought the whole council to its knees. Vex, Tala said firmly, we're not doing this here. No, he agreed. You're not. He turned and walked away without another word. Tala exhaled slowly. We need to talk, somewhere private. Lead the way, Dylan said, voice steady. As they stood, she slid her hand into his. Dylan didn't know what scared him more, the secrets she was hiding, or how right it felt to hold her hand again. Whatever was waiting, it wasn't just about the past anymore, it was about them. The elevator to Tala's apartment moved soundlessly, but Dylan's thoughts were loud. Each second that passed twisted the knot in his chest. Tighter. He kept glancing at her, half expecting her to vanish, half afraid she wouldn't. Tala stood beside him, arms crossed, gaze fixed on the numbers climbing. She was quiet now, her playfulness tucked away like armor. He recognized the look in her eyes. She was planning something. The elevator stopped at the topmost level. The doors opened to reveal a large open apartment, carved from sleek dark stone and glowing with pale green light. The walls shimmered softly, reacting to movement. Dylan stepped inside and whistled low. Wow, Tala glanced over her shoulder. Verdanian bioarchitecture. It responds to energy, heat, motion, even emotion. Dylan raised an eyebrow. So, the walls know when we're happy or mad? Or when we're scared, she replied, locking the door behind them. Her tone made him pause. Tala walked over to a sleek black shelf and pulled out a crystalline bottle. She poured 2 glasses of something that glowed faintly blue and handed one to him. He took a sip. Sweet, cold with a slow burn that warmed his chest. I'm guessing this isn't just a casual catch-up, Dylan said, watching her closely. Tala smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. No, you coming back, after all these years, wasn't an accident. Not to them. Them? She moved to the far wall and touched a panel. The light dimmed. A hidden compartment slid open, revealing a floating crystalline cube. She held it in both hands, and the cube came alive with a soft hum, projecting a series of glowing images into the air, cave walls, painted symbols, strange beings. These are the ruins under the research facility, she said quietly. Discovered the year before your family left. Your father was one of the first to see them. Dylan stepped closer, the images washing across his face. Ancient humans, Verdanian figures, standing side by side, holding hands, raising children, working together, living together. He stared. That's impossible. The council said so, she replied, because they needed it to be. But this, she pointed, was carbon dated at over 10,000 years old. That's long before Earth even had spaceflight. But that would mean, it means we were connected before history began, she said. And someone didn't. Want that truth to survive, Dylan looked at her. You said my dad found this? She nodded. He didn't just find it, he documented it, tried to get it published off-world. That's why they shut him down. Why they forced your family to leave. But he left some of the data behind. Where? Some of it's here, she tapped the cube. Some maybe still hidden in the caves. He stepped back, running a hand through his hair. So my dad died to protect this? Tala looked at him. Wait, he died? Dylan hesitated. Not exactly. He vanished 3 months ago. Left me a message, coordinates. Said, go back to where it began. I thought he meant the planet. But now, he meant the caves, she whispered, eyes wide. A sudden sound broke the moment, a soft chime, followed by a faint pulse from the apartment walls. Tala's eyes narrowed. We're not alone. She dashed to a control panel and activated a privacy shield. The windows turned black, the doors sealed. The crystals in the walls pulsed faster. We've been followed, she said, voice low. They're tracking you. Who? Dylan asked, already reaching for a small weapon clipped to his belt. The same people who tried to erase your father's research, she answered. Council loyalists. They've been watching me for years. The moment you returned, I knew. Footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Shadows passed the door. Tala grabbed Dylan's arm and led him toward the back wall. She pressed her palm to a panel. A hidden doorway slid open, revealing a narrow spiral stairway lit by glowing veins in the stone. This way, she said, grabbing a satchel from the floor and slinging it over her shoulder. I hope you still remember how to run. Dylan grinned, heart pounding. I never forgot. They raced down the stairs, their footsteps muffled by the living stone beneath them. The air grew cooler, damper, the lights dimming as they descended into the bones of the building. Finally, the stairway opened into a long tunnel. Dylan slowed, panting slightly. The walls around them shimmered faintly, just like the ones in their childhood hideout. Where are we? Tala smiled at him over her shoulder. The beginning. He followed her through the winding corridor, deeper into the Undercity. His mind was spinning. Ancient ruins, council lies, his father's disappearance. And now Tala, somehow at the center of it all. He watched her walk ahead, hair flowing behind her like a comet trail, her confidence unwavering. This wasn't just about lost history anymore. It was about survival, about truth, about them. And Dylan Rhodes was finally ready to stop running. The tunnel stretched endlessly beneath Port Emerald, winding like a serpent through the old bones of the city. Every step echoed behind Dylan and Tala as they moved deeper, the glow of the walls dimming to a soft pulse. Dylan had almost forgotten what it felt like to walk these hidden paths. Back then, it was just childhood adventure. Now, every turn felt like it was bringing them closer to something dangerous, something powerful. Tala moved like she knew every step by heart. And maybe she did. She'd stayed behind. She'd grown up with secrets. Dylan had only begun to understand just how much she was carrying. They emerged into a large underground chamber. The walls were covered in ancient carvings glowing faintly with alien script. It looked like a temple or a tomb. The air was cool and heavy, like it had been waiting for centuries to be disturbed. Tala knelt beside a flat stone panel and pressed her hand to a circular design etched into its surface. A low hum filled the room. The carvings lit up one by one until the whole chamber glowed with soft gold and green light. She stood, eyes shining. This is it, she whispered, where it all started, where your father made his final discovery. Dylan stepped forward slowly. What did he find? Instead of answering, Tala reached into her satchel and pulled out another crystal cube. This one was slightly larger and cracked in one corner. "He gave this to my father," she said, "before your family left. He said it was too important to send through official channels, that someone would intercept it. We never dared open it until now." She set the cube on a nearby pedestal. Instantly, it activated. A hologram flickered to life, grainy, but clear enough. Dylan's breath caught. It was his father. Younger, tired, and clearly afraid. "If you're seeing this," the recording began, "it means I failed. I wasn't able to protect the truth. But maybe you can." Tala stepped back, letting Dylan watch. 3 weeks ago, the hologram continued. "We uncovered deeper layers in the ruins. Beneath the oldest structure was a vault, not just carvings, not just bones, DNA, fully preserved genetic records. The results were clear. Verdanians and humans are not just compatible, we are connected. Our species share a common ancestry. Somewhere, long before written time, we were one." Dylan felt the blood drain from his face. The recording went on, voice urgent, but that's not what scared them. What scared the council was the proof of natural reproduction. That the hybrids weren't created in labs. That they were born, lived, loved, died. Generations of them. Real families, real children. Dylan glanced at Tala. She was watching him, not the projection. "My son," the hologram said. "If you're watching this, then you've come back. And if you're with her, Tala Tal, then you've found the one I hoped you would." Dylan's mouth opened in disbelief. The recording went on, softer now. "She's the key, Dylan. Her family line, like ours, carries the dormant gene, 2 threads from the same ancient cloth. If you two reconnect, if something happens, it might reawaken what the council has worked so hard to bury." The image flickered one last time. "They will come for you. They will try to erase you just like they tried to erase the past, but you must remember the truth lives in your blood, and in hers." The recording shut off. Silence followed. The only sound was Dylan's breath. "Is this real?" he whispered. "All of it?" Tala nodded. Her face was unreadable. "I felt something change the moment you stepped off that ship." Dylan blinked. "What do you mean?" She stepped closer, gently taking his hand. "The crystals in this cave, they react to biological energy, especially to hybrid compatibility. That's how your father found the data, by accident, just like us." As she guided his hand to her abdomen, the walls began to shimmer again, only brighter now. Red and gold streaked through the carvings. Symbols changed, pulsed, came alive. Dylan stared at her in disbelief. "Tala?" She nodded slowly, eyes shining. "I felt it last night. Something new. Something ancient waking inside me. I wasn't sure until now. But the crystals don't lie." "You're pregnant?" She didn't answer in words. She just pressed his palm firmly to her belly as the chamber erupted in warm, glowing light. "It's not just a child," she said softly. "It's proof." He pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly as the truth settled in. They hadn't just reconnected. They had reignited something that had been lost for thousands of years. But there was no time to celebrate. From the hallway, behind them, booted footsteps echoed. Voices shouted. "They found us," Tala whispered, pulling back, face suddenly focused and sharp. "They'll do anything to stop this." Dylan's jaw clenched. "Let them try." He reached for the cube, slipping it into his satchel. "There's more," Tala said, pulling him toward another tunnel. "This was only the first vault. Your father left clues to something deeper, something bigger." Dylan followed her without hesitation, because this wasn't just about the past anymore. It was about the future, and it was already growing inside her. They ran. Through narrow crystal tunnels that pulsed with light, through ancient corridors forgotten by time, Dylan and Tala moved like people with a purpose and something to lose. Behind them, voices shouted commands in clipped Verdanian. The Loyalists were closing in, but something had changed. Dylan wasn't just running from danger anymore. He was running toward truth, toward hope, toward the child growing inside Tala, proof of everything the High Council feared. They ducked into a hidden alcove, panting. Dylan pressed his back against the cool stone, clutching the crystal cube his father had left behind. Tala leaned beside him, one hand on her stomach, the other gripping his arm tightly. "You okay?" he whispered, voice raw. She nodded, but her eyes were distant. "They're moving faster than I thought. Someone on the inside must be feeding them intel. Then we need help," Dylan said. As if summoned by the thought, a soft humming sound echoed through the stone walls, a communication signal. Tala pulled a small device from her satchel and tapped a code. A hologram flared to life. A young, Verdanian woman in light armor, green skin streaked with war paint, her eyes sharp and alert. "Captain Marana," Tala said with urgency. "They've activated the trackers. Dylan and I need extraction." The image frowned. "Where are you?" "Lower tunnel, Sector 7, near the original vault site." "You found it?" "And more." Marana's gaze sharpened. "Understood. I have a squad close by. 10 minutes. Tala nodded and ended the call. Dylan looked at her. "Friend of yours?" "Former student, archaeologist turned rebel." Tala smiled faintly. "I have a reputation for corrupting minds." He smirked, but the worry didn't leave his face. "Do you trust her?" "With my life," Tala said. "She's one of the few who've suspected the truth for years. She always asked the right questions and never liked the Council's answers." Suddenly the floor beneath them trembled. A faint boom echoed through the stone. Tala grabbed Dylan's hand. "They're trying to seal the exits. Come on." They ran again, deeper into the labyrinth. The walls grew narrower, the crystals brighter. At times the path forced them close, shoulder to shoulder, breath hot against each other's skin. But neither of them spoke. The moment was too big. After what felt like forever, the tunnel opened into another chamber. This one grander, with tall crystal spires rising like trees, glowing in soft amber and rose. It felt sacred. They slowed, breath, catching not from exhaustion but awe. "This," Tala whispered, "was the heart of it all. The Council never knew about this chamber. My father and yours only found it days before the explosion." Dylan walked forward, eyes wide. Along the walls were murals, carved in ancient detail. Humans and Verdanian not just living together, but leading together. Ruling, creating, celebrating, side by side. And in the center, a depiction of a woman with emerald skin and a man with tan human features, standing hand in hand before a crowd of cheering figures. Between them, a child, glowing, alive. "The first hybrid," Tala whispered. "Born naturally, raised in both cultures. They say the crystals themselves sang when it happened." As if responding to her words, the chamber around them began to hum, softly, deeply, a resonance that could be felt in the chest. Dylan looked at her. "Do you hear that?" She nodded. "It's reacting to us." He stepped forward, reached out, to touch the mural, and the entire room lit up as if recognizing him. The crystals changed colors, swirling in brilliant patterns. And then came the projection, a new hologram, rising from the floor, a map of Verdania. But not just the planet. Beneath it, a vast network of caverns, tunnels, chambers, and glowing nodes, vaults, data sites, evidence. Tala gasped. "Your father didn't just leave behind one vault, he marked all the others. This is everything." Dylan studied the map. "And the Council doesn't know?" "They will. Soon," Tala said grimly. "If they intercept this, it's over." Another explosion rocked the chamber. The map flickered, then stabilized. From the entrance tunnel, shouts rang out again, closer now. Then another voice called through the darkness. "Professor Tala, it's us." "Mirana." A group of armored Verdanian emerged, led by the young captain. She looked at Dylan, then at Tala, and then at the glowing chamber around them. "You weren't exaggerating," Marana said, stepping into the light. "This changes everything." "We don't have time," Dylan said. "They're coming." Marana turned to her squad. "Set perimeter charges. Buy us 5 minutes. Professor, grab what you can." Tala moved quickly, removing the cube and copying the map projection into a portable crystal disc. Dylan helped her, hands steady even as the rumble of footsteps grew louder. Suddenly, one of the guards cried out, "They're here!" Shots fired. Crystal shards flew as energy beams struck. "The walls, go," Marana shouted. "We'll cover you." Tala and Dylan sprinted toward a hidden exit, a narrow tunnel partially collapsed but still passable. As they crawled through the debris, Dylan looked back. Marana fired calmly, bravely, holding the line with her team. A last stand. Tala touched Dylan's arm. "She'll make it, she's too stubborn not to." They emerged into another corridor, this one older, darker. But Tala knew the way. She led him through a half-buried ventilation shaft and out into the open night air of Port Emerald's outskirts. The stars above burned brighter than Dylan remembered. Or maybe it was just that everything felt different now. He turned to Tala, panting, bruised, still gripping the disc. "We have the truth." She nodded. "And now, we share it." He looked at her, the woman who had been his childhood friend, his lost memory, his unexpected future, and he knew, without question, that this was only the beginning, because they weren't just running anymore. They were leading a revolution. The abandoned transmission tower loomed over the city's edge like a forgotten god. Its spires reached toward the twin moons above, wrapped in vines and shadows, humming faintly with dormant energy. It hadn't been used in decades, but its purpose was never lost. It was once Verdania's global broadcaster, capable of streaming data, visuals, and voice to every corner of the planet in real time. Now, it would speak again, and this time, it would speak the truth. Dylan stood with Tala on a broken balcony that overlooked the shimmering skyline of Port Emerald. The city looked peaceful from a distance, soft lights, sleek towers, silver airships cruising overhead. But beneath that quiet surface, tension rippled like a growing storm. The council's soldiers were patrolling in greater numbers. Checkpoints were appearing, and the loyalists had begun rounding up those with suspected hybrid markers. It had already begun. They had hours, maybe less. Inside the tower's control room, Captain Marana and her rebel squad worked quickly, bypassing the old systems with portable uplinks and cracked encryption tools. Sparks flew, panels lit up, antennas extended slowly into the sky. Whining with effort, Tala stood over a console, her eyes focused, movements precise. Her fingers moved with practiced grace as she synchronized the ancient data cube with the tower's core processor. Dylan watched her, his heart pounding, not from fear, but from awe. Everything she'd carried for 15 years, all the secrets, the guilt, the questions, it was all pouring out now, not in words, but in action. She wasn't hiding anymore. She was ready to show the galaxy who she really was, who they were. He moved beside her. "How close are we?" She didn't look up. "We'll be ready in 10 minutes. Once the system boots, we can project everything. Your father's message, the hybrid map, the murals, even a live DNA scan." He swallowed. "Of us?" She nodded. "We have to show them that what happened between us wasn't just possible, it was natural, right?" Dylan's hand found hers. "I'm with you, all the way." Tala smiled, soft and fierce all at once. "I know." Behind them, the tower hummed louder. The energy building inside it made the floor tremble. Crystal conduits glowed along the walls, responding to the power surge, like the very bones of the planet were preparing to speak. Then the entrance alarm beeped. Marana's voice crackled through the comm. "We've got company." Dylan and Tala spun around. On the perimeter cameras, a swarm of council ships appeared, black, sleek, and fast. They flew in formation, blocking every possible exit. Commander Vex's face appeared on the screen. "You have 5 minutes to stand down. Surrender peacefully and you will be shown mercy. Resist and you will be treated as enemies of the state." Mirana scoffed. "They always say mercy like it's a gift and not a threat." Dylan stepped forward. "Can we hold them off long enough?" Mirana hesitated, then nodded. "We can give you the time, but you'll only get one chance to make that broadcast." Tala turned to the old console and touched the main interface. "Then, we better make it count." As she activated the final sequence, the broadcast room around them came to life. Holographic murals filled the air, rotating images of ancient human Verdanian families, DNA strands intertwining, stone carvings that depicted love, leadership, and shared destiny. The system locked on. "All channels ready," Tala whispered. Dylan stepped behind her, his hands resting on her waist. "Let's tell them the truth." She nodded, took a breath, and began to speak into the ancient transmitter. Her voice, amplified by centuries-old technology, rolled across Verdania like a wave. "To all citizens of Port Emerald, and beyond, my name is Tala Tal, and I am proof the Council has lied to you." Across the city, screens flickered, devices beeped. Public squares stopped moving as the holograms activated. People looked up in confusion and then in shock. Tala's image appeared everywhere, glowing, steady, and proud. 15 years ago, our leaders silenced the truth. They told us humans were outsiders, that we were superior, separate. But it's not true. Thousands of years ago, we lived together, loved together, created families, created life. The DNA scans appeared next. Dylan's and Tala's, intertwined. The crowd reactions were mixed. Some gasped, others whispered, some clapped their hands over their mouths, some cried. Tala continued, her voice gaining strength. They tried to erase it. But the truth lives in our bodies, our blood, our children. A final image appeared. Tala and Dylan in the ancient cave, hands joined, the crystal lights swirling around her midsection. The unspoken confirmation was clear. They weren't just rebels, they were parents. The feed paused. Tala turned to Dylan, breath shaking. "You okay?" he asked softly. She nodded. "Yeah, but now comes the hard part." Because outside the tower, the Council's forces had begun their assault. Blasts hit the lower levels. Sirens screamed. Vex's voice returned, full of anger this time. "You've made your choice." Dylan looked at Tala, heart racing. "Then so have we." Mirana's voice came through. "We've got half the city flooding the streets. They saw the broadcast. People are joining us, even some of the soldiers." Tala's face lit up. And then the tower shuddered. A massive blast struck the base. Dylan pulled her into his arms just before the floor cracked beneath them. "Go!" Mirana shouted. "Take the high exit. We'll hold them." Tala looked up through the shattered skylight above. "We can reach the old sky bridge, connects to the Council archives." Dylan nodded. "Then we take the fight to them." They climbed the tower's last stairwell hand in hand, each step shaking beneath their feet. Outside, the city was no longer still. Lights flashed. Crowds moved. The sky filled with ships, some loyal to the Council, others breaking rank. And somewhere inside that chaos, a new world was being born, because the truth was finally free, and the people of Verdania were finally awake. Tala turned to Dylan, wind in her hair, the city burning behind her, a child growing within her. "We're not just telling history anymore," she whispered. "We're writing it." He kissed her fiercely, and together they ran toward the storm. The wind howled through the ancient sky bridge, high above Port Emerald. Shards of broken glass crunched under Dylan's boots as he followed Tala across the rusted, transparent walkway that connected the forgotten transmission tower to the Council archives. The city below them was chaos. Sirens, shouting, lights, flashing through smoke, but also hope. Thousands had taken to the streets. Soldiers were dropping their weapons. Citizens with glowing skin, Verdanian and hybrid alike, were linking hands, standing as one. The broadcast had shattered the silence. But the council would not fall quietly. The sky bridge shook violently. Far below, the tower they had escaped from was crumbling. Flames licked its base as a group of rebel ships blasted incoming council drones from the sky. Dylan held Tala's hand tighter. "Keep going." She didn't look back. She just nodded and ran faster. Ahead, the thick doors of the council archive stood closed, but not for long. Mirana's rebels had planted charges along the supports. A deep thoom echoed through the air as the metal twisted and collapsed inward. Smoke poured from the breach. Tala and Dylan entered together, stepping into the heart of the Verdani regime. The inside of the archive was eerie, silent, cold. Walls of glowing crystal stretched to the ceiling, containing millennia of records, secrets, lies. Holographic statues of past leaders flickered overhead, their proud faces now twisted by the dying systems. At the far end, Commander Vex stood on a raised platform, flanked by what was left of the Council's inner guard. He didn't look surprised. "I should have destroyed that tower years ago," he said. Tala stepped forward, chin high. "You destroyed history instead. You gave the people fantasy, myths, romantic nonsense. I gave them truth." Vex's eyes flashed. "And what would you have them believe? That our bloodlines are weak, corrupted by humanity?" Dylan stepped up beside her. "Not corrupted, connected." Vex's gaze shifted to him. "You, the boy who ran. Now the man who returns with fire and fantasy." "You were afraid of him even as a boy," Tala said. "Because his father knew the truth, because he carried it in his blood. And now, it lives in me too." She placed her hand over her abdomen. The crystals behind her reacted instantly, glowing pink and gold, humming in perfect harmony. All around the chamber, the data vaults flickered as ancient locks began to break. Vex took a step back. "What have you done?" "We woke the crystals," Dylan said. "They were never just storage, they were alive, waiting for a signal. And that signal was us." All at once the chamber ignited. Images erupted from every wall, projected. Memories, buried records, genetic charts, hybrid family trees that stretched back thousands of years. The first natural unions, the shared ancestors. Even early hybrid leaders who had been erased from textbooks. A different history unfolded before everyone's eyes. Lies. One of Vex's guards muttered, but another whispered, "I've seen that mural before, in the ruins below Sector 9. One by one they faltered, and then they lowered their weapons." Vex stood alone. He drew a sleek blade from his side, the edges shimmering. "You think this is over? That one child, one scandal will bring down everything we've built?" Tala stepped forward. "No, but an idea will. A child will live. An idea lives forever." Dylan's voice was steady. "You can't silence evolution." Vex lunged, but he never reached them. A pulse of crystal energy surged from the wall behind Tala, responding to the presence of their unborn child. It struck Vex like a wave of light, freezing him mid-stride. He collapsed to the ground, unconscious but breathing, bathed in the truth his mind had tried to deny. Silence fell over the chamber. Tala turned to Dylan, her eyes wide. "Did the baby do that?" Dylan blinked. "Our baby is already a better revolutionary than we are." They laughed, softly, shakily, wrapped in disbelief and relief. Outside, the people were watching. Tala walked to the center console and activated the last remaining speaker system. "To the people of Verdania," she said, her voice calm, unwavering. "The council has fallen. The truth is yours now. We are not separate species. We are family, and family always finds its way home." Cheers erupted through the city. From balconies, windows, streets, and rooftops, people lifted their hands, their voices, their lights. Some wept, some embraced, Some simply stood in wonder. Dylan stepped behind Tala and wrapped his arms around her. "We did it," he whispered. She turned her head slightly, green eyes glowing. "We're just getting started." Weeks passed. Port Emerald became the capital of something new, the Unity Accord, a government shared by human and Verdani alike. Old symbols were brought down. New ones were raised, featuring the ancient hybrid sigil that had once been hidden away in stone caves. The truth had not just rewritten history, it had healed it. Tala, now considered the planet's foremost scholar of hybrid history and an unintentional icon, gave lectures broadcast across the galaxy. Dylan helped rebuild the research facility with volunteers from Earth and Verdania. Captain Marana was appointed as the new head of planetary security, replacing Vex, who now sat quietly in a rehabilitation center, more reflective than bitter. And, one morning on a quiet balcony under twin suns, Tala pressed Dylan's hand to her stomach. "It's time," she whispered, smiling through tears. The birth was like nothing the medical teams had seen. Biological, yes, but woven with energy. The baby was perfect. Green-tinted skin with soft brown eyes and a quiet humming aura around her tiny body. The first naturally conceived hybrid in thousands of years. They named her Lyra, after an ancient star whose light could be seen from both Earth and Verdania. That night, Tala stood with Dylan on the rooftop. Below them, the streets glowed with celebration. Unity Day had been declared a planetary holiday. The people had spoken. A revolution had begun with a memory, a neighbor, a promise. Now, it was a legacy. Tala rested her head on Dylan's shoulder. "Across time and space," she whispered. "I waited." He kissed her forehead and held her closer. "And I came back," he said, voice full of quiet pride. "Not just for the truth, but for you." Above them, the sky shimmered with twin moons and 1,000 stars. And in the soft, warm light of a future finally born, they stood together, human and Verdani, not as relics of forbidden love, but as the first family of a new beginning, HFY. Humanity found you. Humanity united. Humanity finally home.